Hello, it's me, Sarah, in my living room actually. I don't think I film in here very often. Today's video is kind of a ramble. I feel like I just need to get this out of my head so I can move on. But while I'm talking, I'm going to be playing some footage for you from a recent painting I did, and there is a tutorial version of this video. I'll put the link in the description as well. So cue the painting and let's dive into this topic. And it sort of piggybacks off of what I shared last week about how I kind of trick myself into painting more. I mean, it doesn't feel like I'm tricking myself. It just feels like a way to get over the decision fatigue when I really want to paint, but I don't know what to paint. And I start scrolling through my photos and it snowballs into way too much time spent figuring out what to paint and not painting. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it below. But for today, we are going to be chatting about a topic that is flooding my mind in the past few months. I wanted to dive a little deeper into my process for deciding what to study. And this could range from architecture to landscapes to people to animals, whatever. This idea of structuring a study session to improve or creating some kind of structured study plan as an artist. And I kind of likened it to this phrase I heard in the writing community, which is called pantsing. So if you are a writer, you know what this is, but basically you have a couple different types of writers. Some that will make a very detailed outline before they start plotting or writing their book, and others who will just pants their way through the book. So basically they're flying by the seat of their pants. They're just kind of starting to write and going with the flow. And I think I am very similar to that type of writer as an artist. It's funny though, because as a writer, I do very detailed outlines. And I think I'm trying to adopt some of that mentality for art. So basically, years ago when I started painting, I just enjoyed painting for painting's sake. Then it kind of became my business. It became my way of life, and I have been doing it full time for many years, almost 8 years now. And I think for many artists who aren't doing it full time, pantsing it is totally fine. I think that it's great to just paint what you're inspired by in the moment, and especially when you're in those initial stages of learning, being inspired is super important to help you get through the hard times where you don't really know what you're doing and you kind of have a lot of failures, if you want to call it that, or like mistakes. But you need that inspiration, that spark to keep you going. Like I mentioned, when I first started painting many years ago, I just needed something to inspire me to keep me going in those very early learning stages. So I was painting very random stuff, like anything that inspired me in that exact moment. And it was also streaming pretty much all of my paintings at that time live on Twitch. So I was having like a live painting experience for most of those early learning years. And I would just take suggestions from chat and like, it was just so random. And then a couple years into that, I decided to get really serious with painting and just art in general. So I was trying to study a little bit more in my own time. And even then I was very random. And then I kind of branched into plein air painting, where I was outside painting whatever was in front of me. And that was a little bit more focused because it was landscapes mostly, sometimes architecture. But even then, I would just go to different locations all the time. And some days it was a garden, some days it was a mountain or forest. The overarching theme was landscapes. This is one of the first sketchbooks I took outside with me. Oh, there's so many good memories in this. But actually, let's pause the painting and jump to a couple sketchbook flip-throughs. I want to show you some of my very early painting and sketching sketchbooks, so you can kind of see what I mean when I say random. A lot of times I divide my sketchbooks up into like different mediums. So some sketchbooks are ink lines only, some are only watercolor, some are only gouache, etc. And I think that's a better way for me to divide all my sketchbooks because it's usually based on the paper type. But in terms of theme and what I was studying at the time, that's where it was super random. So as you can see, as I flip through a lot of these pages, every other page is going to be some totally different subject. There were times in my early days when I would try to be a little more focused and maybe do like a whole month of architecture sketches or a whole month of just coastal sketches. but I think I get bored really easily. And because my inspiration doesn't come from one particular subject, it comes from light in the landscape and color and feeling of a scene. It's hard to narrow down my focus into just one subject or theme. Maybe my theme is light and color overall, I don't know. But I will say that there came a time in my learning journey when I started to feel like I was just too scattered and there was no rhyme or reason to what I was choosing. And maybe overall as an artist, I was improving, but then there were certain subjects that I just felt like I was really lacking in or not seeing much progress. And then a couple of years ago, I started focusing a little bit more on the fundamentals again. And I guess partially because I thought, okay, if I feel like I've plateaued a little bit, how am I going to get to the next level? Foundations like color mixing and composition, especially design and value, are super critical for achieving the type of artwork that I want to achieve. So I thought, okay, I just need to go back to the basics, go back to those fundamentals and study them a little bit harder, especially with my newer understanding and like skill level. So this is maybe my biggest tip to anybody out there is don't ever be afraid to go back to the basics, go back to the fundamentals. Like even if you've been painting for 10 years, there's no harm in doing some value studies or studying design oh, hello. Kira just walked by. And you can do that in many ways. There's art books out there that have like structured study sessions that you can follow, but I really like to study master artists. So choose a few artists that you absolutely love throughout history, like John Singer Sargent or something, and study their work. They have sketches, they have paintings that you can look at, and just really kind of dissect what you love about it and what makes it successful, and start implementing that into your own work. You can either do master copies of their artwork, or you can just try to look at a few ways that you love, or reasons you love their artwork, and apply that to a reference that you have. Once I started getting back into those fundamentals, I started to notice that a lot of artists throughout history and contemporary artists that I look up to, they follow, I guess, a specific structure that works for them. Everyone's a little bit different, but they each have some kind of structure in their studying, in their artwork process. And this could be anything from starting with a concept sketch to a color sketch to the final painting, or maybe there's many, many more steps in between. And I thought, okay, what is my ideal structure to help me get to where I want to be? And because color and light are so important for me, I really quickly realized that value and color theory or color mixing is going to be crucial. I mean, design is a huge aspect of it as well, but I didn't feel, I felt like I was sort of okay in that realm. I mean, I know I can always improve, but I wanted to focus on those other things first. I think this was around the time you might have started to notice me saying in my videos that I'm really trying to understand grays in the landscape or in color mixing. So some of my videos from a year or two, maybe 2.5 years ago now, I'm mixing a lot more grays, a lot more muted tones into my work. I'm departing a little bit from the overly saturated and like kind of crazy abstract color ideas that I had when I first started. Even though I still love color, don't get me wrong. I am just trying to sensitize myself to how to use gray appropriately in my landscapes to achieve the feeling that I want. I can finally start to see how much of an impact this has made on my understanding of light in the landscape, how to mix colors more sensitively to achieve the feeling I want, and it just has been very empowering. And in terms of subject, I did focus in a little bit more on coastal scenes and forests maybe overall, but I still have been painting different subjects, kind of jumping around now and then, just because, again, I get bored really easily. And if I only do one thing forever, I will probably just get bored and give up on it. I've also seen quite a few comments in the last maybe 6 months people saying they've been following me for almost my whole journey and they can see such a drastic improvement suddenly. So that was very encouraging. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, what I was doing before is bad. I shouldn't have done that. I should have studied sooner. I should have focused sooner. I needed to go through every step of my journey the way I did to get to this point. I say this all the time, but you are exactly where you need to be during your journey. We can reflect on where we've been and then make decisions accordingly. We can try to guide ourselves in one direction, but sometimes something happens and it takes us somewhere else. So when I say I want to achieve something specific in my art, that's kind of like a loose goal. It's more about having the power, the knowledge, the skills to choose what I paint, how I want to paint it. It's not necessarily I want my art to look a specific way. I guess it is more of a feeling that I want to achieve in my work. So my most recent attempt at creating some kind of structure in my process is to start with the reference, obviously, or if I'm outside, it's whatever's in front of me. And then I do a tiny little thumbnail, maybe 2 or 3 thumbnails, can just be a line drawing even. And then I'll do a value study, which could be just grayscale markers, or it could be paint, just black and white. And then I do a small color study. So very small, very loose, almost abstract looking. It's more just a way to like test colors together to see if it's kind of leading in the right direction. And then I do the actual real size study, the proper study. And doing this over and over and over again has been so hugely beneficial for me. I think this has been an amazing way to gauge my progress with values in particular. When I give myself time in that initial step to really look and see the values, it feels like what I'm learning in those little value studies is exponentially helping me get better. Every time I sit down to paint, I draw on that previous experience and I apply it to this and I keep going and keep going. That can be said with almost anything in art, but I especially feel it in values because I think I was weaker in that area and now I'm kind of finally starting to get it. And I don't always get it right, but it's a step in the direction that I want to be. So I'd love to know in the comments, are you a pantser or are you a plotter? Are you an outliner? Do you give yourself a structure? Do you just follow your inspiration in the moment and paint or sketch whatever you feel like without worrying about any kind of structure? And if so, do you feel like it's helping you achieve your goals? The thing is, I know that so many people watching this aren't trying to be professional artists or like full-time artists to make a living on their art. So a lot of people's goals who watch this are completely different than mine, which I respect, of course. So when you hear me giving this advice or talking about these things, take it with that grain of salt where I am trying to achieve something very specific, to someday paint larger works that can evoke a specific feeling. I do feel like I'm kind of in my sketchbook phase still, like I'm painting smaller, almost always in a sketchbook, just to study, sort of. I can make prints and sell what I make now and then, but it's not my focus. My focus is studying. And thankfully, through Patreon and Skillshare and all these other places where I upload tutorials, I've been able to make a living along the way. But I do have like big goals where someday when I have more space, I will be able to paint large again and creating works that I can sell, that people can hang on their walls. I'm really going off on a tangent now, but basically I'm just saying like, I have a plan. Am I just biding my time? I guess kind of, but not really. I'm studying. I'm trying to get better. Some of you might be thinking, I've seen you paint bigger stuff before. And yes, you're correct. I did paint larger canvases. I've used oils, I've used acrylics. I've even painted larger gouache and watercolor pieces. But I have basically run out of space. We live in a very tiny rental and our storage is at max capacity. So in a way, being forced back into my sketchbooks and being a sketchbook artist, if you want to call it that, even though I was a little bit resentful at first because I love painting large, but I do see a much faster improvement. Not that it's all about, getting somewhere faster, but I see the benefits of working small because I'm able to explore so many different ideas at a quick pace, and I can study something very specific and then move on to the next thing or redo it over and over again. I don't know. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So what has this video been about? A lot of things. It's getting down to the end of the year now, and I don't even know where my brain is at. I think I am pretty much ready for a break. I might do another video where I talk about my guiding words from this year and what my new ones for next year are. Instead of New Year's resolutions, I use guiding words. It's been an amazing change. So maybe I'll do a video about that if you guys are interested. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. Make sure to press the like button before you go. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you're working on, what you're thinking. So hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you all next time. Take care. I feel like I should have started this video with, okay, every time I say the word structure, take a shot of tea. Someone came to visit. Someone came to visit. Whenever he sees the camera, he's like, now I can bug mom. You're just so cute, I can't help it. Some people do podcasts. I do ramble casts. Okay, so that's it. Bye.